Arr! Welcome aboard, mateys, to Stab the Dragon and the good ship American Catechism, coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas, where it's a mild 94 degrees on Saturday, August 16th, 2025. This is a whiskey holiday edition, but wait, what holiday is this? It is actually a twofer holiday. Today is National Rum Day. There you go. And National Airborne Day for our you paratroopers out there. I know that doesn't necessarily sound like a whiskey holiday, but oh well. I am just barely dipping my toes into the rum cask, and I am liking how it's going, so I will consider expanding into doing a few more rum reviews. Today, I will be reviewing this rum, Bacardi Anejo Cuatro 4-year-old rum from Puerto Rico. Last night, I reviewed the classic film noir movie, The Maltese Falcon, starring Humphrey Bogart, and at one point in the book by Dashiell Hammett, the movie shows him drinking and offering some drinks to the two policemen, but doesn't say what it is. But in the book, he's drinking Bacardi rum. And so that was my whole motivation for today, as I read that book, and Bacardi rum was mentioned, so we have Bacardi rum today. The way my reviews are set up, the first 5 minutes I give the bare bones information and evaluation, then I go into all the details, history, and research. Frequently I close with a cocktail and that I've just reviewed, so we'll see about that. Just the facts. This family-owned company dates back to 1862 in Cuba, but this is now made in Puerto Rico at the world's largest rum distillery, still owned by the same Bacardi family. I paid $22.99 in July of 2025. This is an 80 proof, 4-year-old gold rum. Tasting notes: mild vanilla, dark honey, cloves, toasted oak. I think I get some tobacco and definitely some leather going on in there, and of course, rum funk. My score was an 84. Letter grade for drinkability, A-. Analysis and recommendation. I am definitely a rum newbie, having only had a handful of different rums through the years and have just now started to study the subject. This is a mass-produced worldwide rum, so the critics out there tend to relegate this one to being for cocktails only. However, I found it to be wonderful neat, and just not quite sure about the cocktails yet. I've tried a few. We'll try another one today. So for a whiskey guy coming into rum, I can highly recommend this as a good first rum. Rum's very different from whiskey in that the sweetness takes off in a totally different direction, and there's this fascinating rum funk that I find attractive. So National Rum Day and Airborne Day. What's this all about? Well, I won't really study Airborne Day, but I do have a paratrooper in my family, and I've got some good friends. You know, when I was in the Army, I knew lots of paratroopers, so good on them. So let's focus on the National Rum Day. And I really couldn't find out a whole lot about this, but it seems to be the Gosling's company on Bermuda that started this in 2020. And at least they were the first to celebrate it. They probably started it as some kind of a marketing campaign. The history of rum itself, though, is pretty clear in that when sugarcane was transplanted to the Caribbean in the 16th century, some type of fermented beverage was soon made with the sugar. It easily ferments in that climate. But it was the Mount Gay distillery in Barbados that's the most likely source for true distilled rum, originally called rum bouillon. The first written source mentioning rum dates back to 1651, but rum was most certainly being made there at least as early as 1638. Many indentured servants, read white slaves from Ireland and Scotland, were transported there, and combined with black slaves from Africa, planted and worked the sugar cane, making sugar and molasses. But the key was that those Scots-Irish, who we think brought over some whiskey making stills, that's the important part here, No cereal grain was really grown on the island initially. They had to import all their food for local use because sugarcane became their main primary crop. But again, that juice from the sugarcane ferments real easy. So we don't really know who did it first, but somebody on Barbados put together a still like they had back home in Ireland or Scotland, and they made distilled rum. As a bonus, the rum was not made from the pure cane sugar that was for exports, but it was kind of a byproduct of making sugar, so that none of the cane was wasted, and the rum thereby became another good export to raise money. Rum became an integral part of the British economy and culture, largely replacing brandy and wine because it was less expensive. Rum soon entered the Royal Navy as part of the daily grog ration to the sailors. In the American colonies, rum was also the standard drink before whiskey started. Whiskey gained ground in the late 1700s. Prior to that, rum was the drink of choice. The sugar tax of 1764 that was going to be used to raise money for the British military expenses, the end of the French and Indian War. The sugar tax was applied to sugar, molasses, and rum, and that became a sore spot for the Americans and helped lead towards more smuggling and lead towards the revolution. Rum had become a currency, in fact, in the barter economy of the Caribbean and colonial America. A small keg of rum became a common form of currency, just like whiskey would later become. And of course, the pirates utilized rum as well, hence the hat. Pirates smuggled a lot more than stolen gold and silver. They had a well-established trade business that would carry and trade just about everything and anything, as long as they could smuggle it past the Navy's Coast Guard and the tax agents. During Prohibition years in the 1920 to 33 timeframe, the U.S. Coast Guard spent a lot of their time and energy in the Caribbean, chasing not just pirates, but rum runners, who used fast, small ships to smuggle rum from the Caribbean into America. And those fast boats eventually became the stimulus to build the famous PT boats that the Navy used in World War II. The bottom line, then, as to why I would include National Rum Day in my American Catechism, is that despite whatever your position of faith, religion, and alcohol, rum has played a crucial part in our history and culture. Now let's get to let's get to the details of this brand of rum, and we'll start with history. Facundo Bacardi Massa was born in Spain in 1814 and immigrated to Cuba in 1830. Bacardi began experimenting with rum and came across a strain of yeast that gave him the flavors he was wanting. He also used two different stills to produce two different kinds of rum and began blending those together and then aging in oak barrels, and the final step being running the rum through a charcoal filter. This made for a very refined rum that was marketable to the fine clubs and restaurants of the day. This business has stayed in the Bacardi family ever since and is the largest family-owned spirits company in the world. Of course, in the 1960s, after the Cuban Revolution and the communist takeover, they had to abandon Cuba, and so that's why this is made in Puerto Rico. But I think their headquarters actually is in the Bahamas. They had opened some distilleries in Puerto Rico and Mexico, but the one in Puerto Rico is the world's largest. Other companies that Bacardi owns includes Martini and Rossi, Drambuie, Di Serono Amaretto, Cazadores Tequila, John Dewar and Sons, Bombay Sapphire, Grey Goose, Patron Spirits, Craiglachie, Aberfeldy, Altmore, Royal Brackla, William Lawson's, and Teeling Irish Whiskey. This label, Bacardi Anejo Cuatro 4-year, was released in 2018, replacing a non-age stated version. So for history, 5 out of 5. Bottle, label, and marketing. Rum bottles seem to be a little bit different shape in general from whiskey, and a lot more variety of shapes. The bottle's pretty simple, but does have some embossing. You've got the bat on the label. You've got a lot of gold medallions down here at the bottom for various prizes that they've won through the years. And some of those are really from the 1800s even. So, and they're extremely tiny. I even had trouble reading these things with a magnifying glass, but some of these are from the 1800s. So, you know, this label's been around for a long, long time. So I think for the bottle and the label, it's really pretty attractive. You got the tropical scenery there. Marketing, obviously, this is everywhere. So 4 out of 5 for bottle, label, and marketing. Appearance. Well, you can see it here in the bottle. It's a rich bronze color maybe. In the glass, it's a little bit more gold in color. So appearance is a 3 out of 5. Composition. This is a blended rum, with the youngest rum being no less than 4 years old, coming in at 40% ABV or 80 proof. Aged in American white oak, and I think it's ex-bourbon barrels. I've seen some conflicting information about the barrels. This is a column still run that's been filtered through charcoal, and this version of Bacardi Anejo replaced an earlier non-age statement predecessor, 2018. So 13 of 15 points for composition. Nose. Sweet caramel, hints of vanilla. The rum funk, definitely. You know, I have trouble smelling whiskeys sometimes. Depends on the type of whiskey. But this right away, it's got a rich smell. No real alcohol burn going. So for the nose, 8 out of 10. Time to taste. Sweet with a good dose of the rum funk. There's some vanilla there, some spiciness. You get the wood, the oak, leather, tobacco, brown sugar, I think some butterscotch maybe. Orange peel. A little bit of orange going on there. I find it very pleasant and enjoyable. It is definitely sweeter than most bourbons, but the sweetness tastes genuine, not artificial like in some super sweet bourbons. There are some bourbons that hit me wrong. Old Forester 86, Old Forester 100, Maker's Mark, Four Roses. Those things have a sweetness, Larceny. Those things have a sweetness that goes in a different direction for me, and it tastes almost artificial. You know, not a pleasant sweetness. This is actually super sweet, but in the right way. The sweetness really does taste syrupy. The only knock on the taste here is at times I think I'm getting just hints of flavor and not the full package. Kind of a promise of more that's not quite delivered maybe. And that's that 80 proof kicking in, I think. But really, this is very enjoyable. I mean, I really do like that. 22 out of 25 for taste. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish. In other reviews that I checked, people say it's thin. I don't think it's thin. I get more of a medium. You know, it's not real rich either, but it is a little bit oily. I mean, I can feel it coating my mouth. It's a little bit syrupy, so I'm going to say medium. The burn is very slight. It's focused in the mouth. Doesn't go up in my sinuses or down the chest. It does tend to build as you go a little bit. Very, very pleasant burn. So nothing strong. Again, no ethanol flavor going on there. The finish is, again, medium. Some people I checked online basically said, hey, it disappears quickly. I'm not finding that. I mean, I'm getting some lingering rum funk, some lingering wood tannins. The sweetness is there. So, you know, that's a nice medium finish as well. So 12 out of 15 points for mouthfeel, burn, and finish. Neat or cocktail? Well, I really like it neat, okay? And everything that I saw online in print or on videos talked about how, oh, this is a good mixture. This is only for mixing. You don't want to, you know, it's not worth sipping. Hogwash. I like it neat, right? But have I tried some cocktails? Absolutely. Rum and Coke. I wasn't totally happy with it in the rum and Coke. I mean, it was okay. I've had some other rums. I've only had like 5 or 6 rums. And I've had a couple others that I thought were maybe better in Coke. Tried a lime daiquiri the other day. And it was okay. It was pretty good. But again, seemed to be lacking just a little bit. So what I'm going to do right now is pause and go make a old-fashioned and try this in an old-fashioned. So I'll be right back. We're back with an old-fashioned made from the Bacardi Anejo 4-year rum. And what I did was a little bit unusual in that I added, instead of sugar or simple syrup, sometimes I add maple syrup. This time I tried molasses. Now let me tell you that when you put a little bit of molasses in a cold drink, it becomes tar. And so I really had to stir this up pretty vigorously to get the molasses to kind of blend in. But the proof is in the taste. And that's actually pretty good. But I just thought, you know, rum is made largely from molasses, so why not? And I love molasses. I'll put molasses in my hot cereal, on biscuits, on pancakes. And this turned out pretty well. And then you can see the orange peel there, and it's got a couple of Luxardo dark cherries going on there. 3 splashes of bitters. And that tamps down on the super sweetness quite a bit between the molasses and the bitters. And so this is actually quite good. So again, if you use molasses like I did, you're gonna have to really stir it in there pretty good and work it over pretty well. I should have heated the molasses first. I don't know. But so the neater cocktail, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. But this is a case of it needs further experimentation, because I've never done cocktails with rum just out and about in a restaurant or bar or anything like that. So I really don't know for sure what I'm doing there. But to me, this Bacardi that everybody says is better for cocktails, I really do prefer neat. The cocktails were okay, nothing bad. The old fashioned turned out to be my favorite of all the cocktails that I've done. So 4 out of 5 points for neater cocktail. Price, value, and availability. Total Wine here in Fort Worth, $19.59. Specs, $20.62. Goody Goody, $22.99. So this is an excellent price range with a strong value, I think. It's great availability. 9 out of 10 points for price, value, and availability. Bonus points. Between the great history, the family-owned nature of this company, their marketing, the label and bottle, composition, the taste. Again, the taste at times seemed like I'm getting hints of the flavors and not the full deal, but still pretty good. So I'm going to say 4 out of 5 bonus points, giving me a total score of 84. Letter grade for drinkability is an A-. I'm very inexperienced with rum. I've only started studying it recently, but I've had a total of, I think, 6 different rums. One brand I've had twice. I chose this Bacardi simply because of reading Dashiell Hammett's Maltese Falcon, and it mentions him drinking the Bacardi by name. And today, National Rum Day, I thought, why not do a movie review and rum review both? So that's what I've done. And I also chose Bacardi because it was one of the most well-known and popular rums in the world, even knowing that by choosing a mass-produced, best-selling rum, I know what the critics are going to say about this rum in the reviews, and I was not disappointed. A lot of them trashed it. Some of them just say, hey, it's only good for cocktails, blah, blah, blah. Almost everybody puts this on the lower tier. But guess what? I happen to like it. Maybe I'm lower tier. Why not? Therefore, if you're a whiskey guy like me, I do not hesitate to recommend this Bacardi Anejo Cuatro 4-year from Puerto Rico. If you want to first go at rum, this would be a good place to start. It's inexpensive, good value for the price, and I find it delicious. As I progress in my rum studies, I'm sure I'll grow to refine my taste buds and find some other rums that maybe even more than this. So, cheers to all you airborne sky soldiers out there. American Airborne includes soldiers, Marines, Navy SEALs, Air Force PJs, and tactical air controllers. And have a happy National Rum Day. In conclusion, next week we will be focused back on blended scotches, and I'll start off with a review of Shieldaig Classic blended scotch. And then we'll do a head-to-head competition with Grant's that I reviewed this past week. So that's coming up this next week on my Blended Scotch Review channel. For now, this is American Catechism for Stab the Dragon, out here.